Good afternoon. Happy Wednesday to you. How's your day going? It's been kind of crazy around here, but you know, Wednesdays are like that. Hump day. But we're halfway through the week. The full moon is over, so all the craziness can end. And now we're just moving forward on into the fun times. And there goes more noise in the background as we get everybody together. It's just too fun. We've got a full studio here with you today because we want to make sure we're ready to go to talk pricing. It's a big deal. So I know many of you have asked questions about pricing, and oftentimes we just sort of blow it off and we say, oh, not today, another time. Today's the day. We're going to do pricing 101 and kind of talk about how do you price profitably and what are your options. Now we've got the team here. I'm up here with you. Hello there. Glad you're here. Introduce yourself. Let us know where you're from. David's working the technology, pushing the buttons, making sure everything's going crazy there. Jeff's running the camera, making sure that you can see things. Then we've got Marisa, the voice from the dark on Facebook, and Carolyn, the voice from the dark on YouTube, keeping you guys together. And then greeting you, Susie's on YouTube and Caledonia's on Facebook. And then in the studio, we've got a graduate from years ago joining us, Cecile, which is very exciting, on vacation down to Portland. And then also Mary Ann's in the studio today. So there's a lot of us here to join you. Now, who are you? Introduce yourself, get to know each other, put your tulip on there, let them know you're part of the tulip tribe. And then start thinking about pricing questions because we want to talk pricing today. Now, while I pull up containers and such, David, Marisa, Carolyn, what's going on out there?
I see a few students that I recognize on, and a lot of them have CFD after their names too.
You know, isn't that exciting? When they do our program, the basic and the advanced, now qualify you to have the title Certified Floral Designer and is approved with the American Institute of Floral Designers, finally, yay, to do their online testing. And with that, we have a 100% success rate to reach their CFD. So congratulations to you that have done that. And for those of you that haven't yet, come join us. Flower School is pretty great. You don't only learn pricing, but you learn design, and you're ready to go on into the American Institute of Floral Designers and become one of their members as a CFD player. What else is happening?
We have Marmac from Toronto on her big screen on YouTube.
Oh, Marmac, thank you for sending me that picture. That was so fun to see. For those of you that were here last week when I said I thought it might have been somebody else, but no, it wasn't. She sent me a note like, no, it's not me. It's Marmac. She and her husband watch us in Toronto, and because we go on YouTube now, they can stream it into their TV and watch me on a great big screen. And she sent me a picture. I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. So if you've never tried that, if you're on Facebook, someday switch over to YouTube. Take a look. It's the exact same stream. We're just doing it once. But then if you want to, you can feed it into your TV, watch it big. Kind of cool to see what all's going on. It's just kind of amazing how it all pulls together. So I'm going to grab some things here, make sure I've got everything, and pull together. We're going to start with some greens. I've got some myrtle and some Israeli ruscus, maybe a fatsia leaf or two, maybe a little bit of salal. Those of you that have taken classes with me know Leanne's rule is 3 foliages at any time. Because if you do lots of foliage, it adds interest, makes things exciting, makes it easier to charge a little bit more. And pricing is the hard part. So we've got to get something made here so we can talk about pricing. Any questions about pricing, get it typed in there, and we'll try to answer each and every one throughout the feed. But if you don't take the time to type it in, you're not going to get it answered. And I really do want to answer all your questions. So I did want to make sure that we had plenty of time today to talk pricing and answer everything you want to know. Now, the first designs I'm going to do in foam today, and I've got a couple containers, both a little bit interesting, because I find that if you have interesting containers, it makes it easier to price at a profitable level. Because if it's a container that they can see anywhere, anytime, with anybody, then there's nothing unique about you. And so taking the time to search out cool containers is really quite important. So I have 2 cool containers filled with foam and flower food. Then I've got my greens here. I'm looking around to see, there's a little more. And I think I'll use a little bit of leather fern too. There's one thing that I have learned over the years is there really are only 3 things that are universally available worldwide. Because we have students from all over the world and they report in when they can't find something and when they do find something. And the 3 things that I have found over the years that are always available to most everybody are 1, roses, because roses are worldwide. Leather fern, ironically, is pretty much worldwide. And baby's breath. The 3 classic items that sometimes we say, oh, I'm so tired of that. But the reality is, it's always available. You can count on it, and it will be there. It doesn't mean that it's old and icky. It just means that it's a reliable component for your designs. So, David, what you got there?
So I got a quick question on pricing, and it's a very good one. It's from Rick. But just so you know, you got a lot of people online. Many of them are first-timers online watching us. One of them, interestingly enough, name is Carrie Kessler, and it's her first time on. Anyway,
Hey, welcome, Carrie. Glad you could join us.
Rick wants to know, this is prime growing season. When you harvest your own flowers from your own garden, what do you charge?
Excellent question, Rick. So how do you price things that you grow yourself? Because the reality is seeds are cheap. There's hardly any value there. That's easy. And if it's a plant that just keeps coming back year after year, it's like, well, your investment was maybe $10 at the beginning, but you're just continuing on over and over and over. So how do you price that? It's really quite important that you price it as though you had to buy it. So taking the time and researching what that item costs and what it retails for, both wholesale and retail, so that you can compare and then price yours accordingly. Because there'll be a day that you want to sell it and you don't have it growing in your flowers right then. They're not blooming, it's out of season, so you have to go buy it. And so if you have priced things lower, all of a sudden you can't. So pricing what you grow, you want to research what things are selling for and then price at the same. That same goes when you do foraging. So many of us now forage for materials. It's really on trend to look for roadsidea and some interesting, unique items. When you hunt for things and forage, balance it out. Determine what it would have cost if you were to buy it and then charge accordingly. The benefit is, since you didn't have to buy it, you make a greater profit, which that's pretty cool. But it took you time. You had to know where to go harvest that. You had to grow it. You had to water it. You had to have property to do that on. So you want to definitely charge for that. So good question, Rick. Now, many of you have your own gardens and might even be flower farmers. So how do you put value on it? It's tough, to be perfectly honest, to be able to know exactly what you should be charging. But the key is to make sure and compare it to a retail item. See what they're charging for it in other places and then charge accordingly so that you are compensated for all that hard work that you've done. Other thoughts out there while we're putting a few things in here?
Well, I would like to give a shout out to all these students that I see, because there's a lot. So there's Lori Schultes, and then we have I can never say her last name.
Danito.
Thank you. Then we have Diane Ouellette, Nancy Forsyth, Cody Hickish. She was actually a classroom student.
Hey, Cody.
And then Julie Spear, Sherry Devin Cohen, Robin Feinglass, and then Carrie Kessler is also an online student as well, and then Angela Hoyt.
Cool. So many of you from the day when you graduated or are still in class joining us. As we are going through pricing, please help out, because you know what works in your area. And since you've studied with us, you know the things that we teach. And so as questions come in, if you have thoughts to share, please do. This is a collaboration of the entire tribe. It's not just me. And I learn from you, just like you learn from me. So if you'll share your thoughts and your experiences. So that would be a question I have. Let's put this one out there, and then you guys watch and let me know what the answers come in as. How many of you are flower farmers? So do you grow your own flowers? That's the question of the moment. Do you grow flowers that you sell retail? You know, I have a friend up in Issaquah, Washington, who he actually bought an entire farm so that he can grow his own flowers. He grows hundreds and hundreds of dahlias, and then among other things. And then it has moved on to where he's using his farm as a farm-to-table destination. And I believe he just had a wedding there last weekend too, which is kind of cool. And he's found that by being a farmer and a florist and a destination, it really balances out his expenses and brings in multiple streams of income, which is of course what we all want. That works out so well. So as you can see, what I've been doing so far is just putting in foliages. I'm going to turn that so you can see. I just filled in. And as I was working, I was thinking about my elements and my principles. So I created a line. I added a focal emphasis. I've got a variety of textures. I worked on a form with the triangle. Now what's interesting is there's not a lot of difference in how much foliage is used. They're almost the same between this larger one and this smaller one. The difference is I cut the stems shorter in this one. So point number one, when you're talking about pricing, if you leave your stems longer, you get a bigger arrangement. If it's bigger, size is value. They think they got more for their money. And in reality, they're just not being taken the stem away. You didn't shorten it, so that it doesn't cost you that much more just to leave them long and use the whole stem. Pretty much close to the same amount of foliage in each. I think this one I did 2 myrtle instead of 1. No, this one has 2 here as well. So 2 myrtle, 2 myrtle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the ruscus, 3 on the fatsia leaves, and then a little bit of salal in each. So it's the same. Which one looks like it costs more? You know. That's the way. So Marisa, Carolyn, what's going on?
I have a question from Bernadette. She's asking how to price a piece if there is a minimum amount to purchase from a wholesaler.
Ah, thanks for that question, Bernadette, because that is one of the concepts that I wanted to talk about right in this live, and this is as good a time as any, is what happens when you sell one arrangement and you've got to go, and maybe you want lilies, but you have to buy 10 of them, and maybe you want roses, but you have to buy 25 of them. Maybe you want gerbera, but you have to buy 10 of them. How do you price that out? And that's where the benefit goes to a flower shop. There are different types of retailers. You can have a flower shop. You can have a studio. You could be a mass market. You could be a subscription. You could do home-based. There's all different types of businesses. All are correct and all are good. But the winner, when it comes to the large quantities of flowers, is the flower shop, because when they go and buy all of these to fill that one order, they have the potential of putting it out on display in their store and selling more. So that's a bonus for them. For the studio-based florist, all of a sudden, what do you do with those other 25 roses? Maybe you needed 5, so you got 20 left over. Ooh, kind of challenging. So that's an excellent question. The best bit of advice that I can give you there is when you sell your things, if you sell with as few varieties as possible. So where it might be cool to think, oh, I'm going to put 20 different kinds of flowers in there, that might be cool, but all of a sudden you've got to go buy 20 bunches of flowers. They might be about $10 a bunch, rounding it off, so you just invested $200 to make one $100 bouquet. Doesn't work. It could be equally as pretty with 5 varieties of flowers. So then you don't have as much left over. Now another thing that I find many people will do if they are a home-based business where they don't have that opportunity of being able to sell more flowers to more people is they put in a high minimum. So they will not do an order for less than $150 or less than $200. And you may say, but I can't do that. I can't charge somebody $150 for a bouquet. If it costs you $100 to go buy those flowers, you kind of have to charge more because you don't want to just keep your house filled with flowers. Well, yeah, we do. We want to keep our house filled with flowers. But you can't do that and just make a living. So if you can sell things with fewer varieties, that will help you. If you are in a flower shop, that's a luxury in that mode because you can have the different varieties then out on display and sell more of them. But now you've got rent, you've got overhead, you've got other issues. So it gets it to be a little bit trickier. So good question, Bernadette. In a nutshell, after I went round and round there is, you've got to be very careful. And when you sell, if you can sell a mono botanical design, maybe a whole vase of nothing but lilies, you make more money. If you can at least simplify so you don't have dozens of varieties, you can make more money. And then putting in a minimum so that you know you can afford to go buy some flowers so that you can do that. If you have a storefront, learning how to buy so that you have a nice variety, so you can do a variety of arrangements, but not so much that you too end up with all these leftover items. Now, as we talk pricing, if you know somebody who should be watching this, tag them. Just put their name in there, go at Leanne Kessler, whatever, but tag your friends so that they come join us. Share this video out onto your own timeline. That way they'll see it, and it will spread the word. We'll get more people talking pricing. We'll get more questions so that we can have more answers to those things that are just making you crazy when it comes to profitability. What else have we got there?
Well, you've got several questions coming in specific to some of the things you've prepared. It might be a good idea to start on different pricing strategies.
Okay, so there are several different ways of pricing that are correct. So let's look at the classic one. David, can you put that classic one up there?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so this is the one, if you come to flower school, we start you with this one because it's the one that everybody knows. It's the classic form of pricing. And in doing this, you start with your items that you use. So you would take all your perishable items, so everything that's going to die, and then you mark that up. Industry standard is about 3.5 times, but it depends on where you are. It could be 3 times, it could be 5 times. It depends on what your overhead is and what your expenses are. But it is divided between hard goods and perishables. So you take your perishables, go times 3.5. Then you take your hard goods, so that would be like the container and the foam, and you go times 2. Now that can change as well. Some people do times 2.5, some people do times 1.5. So it again will vary depending on your market. Key is that you do count every little thing that you put in and then make a decision about what your markup is so that it is a profit mode. Then you've got to add labor. So if they came in, that's not working in there, let's shorten it down a little bit, there we go. If they came in and they wanted to buy some lilies and gerberas from you and just take them home with them, just like that, you'd give them to them at 3.5 times. They want you to add it into a container, then you add for the container, you mark that up, and then make a decision what your markup is there. Then they want you to design it. Then you add for your labor. So you always tuck in price for labor. You don't skip labor. You got to have that in there. And industry standard varies 20% to 30% for arrangements. In the classroom, we use 20 quite frequently for everyday work. If it's wedding work, it might go up to 40%. If it's really detailed handwork, corsages, it might go to 50%. If it's something that takes advanced knowledge of design, you might go into 35%. So it can vary there. So it's perishable times 3.5-ish, hard goods times 2-ish, add labor, and then that's your retail price. Now, some people like to use a more simplified version. David, you have that one in there?
It's up now.
Okay, so here's another version for you. In this one, you don't have to divide between hard goods and perishables. You just take everything that you spent, so all the money that is out of your pocket, and then you mark it up. And it could be anywhere from 3 times to 10 times, again, depending on what it is you're making, where you're located, what your overhead. 5 is a real common number, especially for studio florists doing weddings and such. 3 is a very common number for everyday cash and carry sales. 10 is a very common number for a high-end, high-service, high-quality business. So what does that mean? It means if I spent $10 for these materials, that I would mark that up times 10, and I would sell it to you for $100. Or if I spent $10 and I was on a more lower end, I'd mark it up times 3, and I would sell it to you for $30. So the exact same arrangement could be $30, could be $100, but it depends on your expenses. Then there's one more formula. Have you got that one there, David? Can we put the innovative formula up there? Let's go ahead and get that one in too.
And interestingly enough, someone asked about a formula much like this, and it's their boss, and is it really a good formula?
The innovative is where you mark up your materials and then you just add a price for every single insertion. So if I'm going to stick this rose in this design, I'd say, okay, the rose is $2, whatever it is. But then to insert, to put it into an arrangement, I'm going to add, find my hole here, I'm going to add another $2 just for the insertion. So every time you make a stem placement, you add $2. And I'm going to turn this around because I can't see where I'm putting that and I don't want it to be really ugly. So let's kind of adjust here a bit. So this is where live gets bad because I have to turn it to face me for a second. And then I'll turn it back to you so you can see. There we go. So I'm bringing them down low to create the emphasis. And then coming back over here. Well, I do a few of these. Carolyn, what have you got for me?
Let's have a great question on here from Therese in Sweden.
Hi, Therese.
She's asking, how do you put a value to your work? And I'm guessing her question that she's getting at, how do you charge for being a floral artist and making a creative, beautiful design?
You know, can we hang on to that question because that's an excellent one, and don't let me forget it, and we'll come back to it as soon as I finish these because I really want to go into that. How do you put value on you? And that's a whole discussion I want to come back to. So excellent. So hang on to that one. And Therese, don't let us forget. Carolyn, you make a note of that. Marisa.
So speaking of value, but this is a different type of value, I really love this question from TJ. He or she, I can't tell, is asking any varieties you tend to avoid working with because of wholesale cost versus perceived value.
Oh, that's an excellent question, TJ. When you have certain areas, there's certain things you can't sell because of perceived value, period. People just don't think it has value. Right here, we like to use liatris. Liatris is a popular item. We can get a good price for it. In the southeast, I believe it's the southeast United States, it's a weed. And so it just grows alongside the road. And no one will pay for it because it's a weed. It's something you dig up and throw away and burn. So that's a flower you just would never order, because if they think it's a weed, they're not going to pay you anything for that. So that is true. You do need to know your market, know if it's possible to sell that item, or if you should just skip it and not even bring that in. Now, as I've been working here, we talked about the 3 different pricings. We talked about size, and I'm going to put a few more stems in here so that you guys can see. I'm mostly matching up using the same materials. Not exactly, because I'm talking and I'm losing track, but I'm trying to do the same things. And so I've got 3 roses that I'm sticking into this one because I did 4 there, so I'll actually have to do 4 in this one. So I've got 3 coming in. Okay, and I've got to add another so that it matches, so that I have 4 and 4. Okay, I did a little bit of the European mini aster in each one, about the same. I did 2 stems of lilies, 2 stems of lilies. I did 1, 2, 3 gerbera, 2 gerbera on that one. So maybe I should put another gerbera in there. Just, oops, I don't have another gerbera, so I'm not going to. So that one's going to have a little bit less on that. But by doing them with the same materials, the price is pretty much the same. But again, which one looks like more? Which one would you be able to charge more for? The one with the bigger size. So that's one way to work on perceived value and be able to mark things up. Other questions?
So I also like this one too. So Rick is asking, how do you tell a bride that the part of the cost also includes the time we spend as florists behind the scenes, planning and executing the wedding?
How do you compensate yourself for all your time working? Let's save that one with Teresa's question because they sort of go together.
Okay.
How do you put a value on that? So excellent. So save that one. Don't let me forget it. So getting paid for all your time so that you are not working for free, because you are worth it. You are valuable. You deserve to get paid. And if you don't charge for your time, you're not going to be a florist for very long. So I'm going to add a little bit of curly willow in here to get some dynamic line. Those of you that have studied with us, you know dynamic line adds value to an arrangement because it creates interest. So just kind of bringing this on in. And then one over on the other side. And this time I think I'll let it go a little bit taller, just because I can. Pruning it down. Again, thinking about size is money. And then feeding it down in. Carolyn, what you got there?
Yeah, Marnak shared her pricing formula with us, and she takes what it costs to make the arrangement times 2.5, then times 2 times hard goods, and then she's broken her labor into hourly or 15-minute blocks.
So a time-based pricing is excellent as well, and that is one of the things I was going to bring up in the next thing, but let's throw it in here too. By keeping track of your time and then billing for it, it forces you to think about what you're doing. And you know, I have this theory that you can do anything in 10 minutes if you put your mind to it. Think about it. You can spend all day long cleaning your house, or if all of a sudden you see somebody's walking up your steps and they're going to come and visit you, how quick can you get that living room straightened up? It doesn't take any time at all. All of a sudden you're ready for company. I used to take hours to vacuum. I hate to vacuum. So I thought, well, why am I taking hours to vacuum when I don't even like it? Get it done fast. And I can vacuum in less than 5 minutes because I hate the sound of a vacuum. You can do anything fast if you want to. And if you force yourself to do it faster, then you make more money per hour. How cool is that? You can do that. You can make more money all the time just by pushing yourself a little bit, making yourself think about, how long does that take me? What do I need to be doing? So I've got now a little willow in there. See how that changes the dynamics of the design? Makes it seem like more, makes it seem more expensive, but it really is just adding a little bit of willow. So now, we talked about the 3 formulas, classic, then going with just a simple markup, then going to the innovative. All 3 of those are good, but how do you know if it's profitable, if it works for you? And how do you figure out what your markup should be? And how do you figure out how to get value for your skills and to be paid for all your time, even the behind the scenes time? Let's kind of talk about that a second. So it's 3:30. We've been doing this for 30 minutes. We've got a couple of arrangements done. You can see that one looks like it's more expensive than the other, but the reality is they're pretty darn close in cost. So one of the things you can do to be able to charge more is to leave your stems longer. It's that simple. Leave your stems longer, and it looks like more, and then you've got a greater perceived value, and you've got a happier customer. So that's step 1. Now, step 2, how do you get value for you, and how do you know what you should be charging, and how do you know what is the right price? And here's where I challenge you to take a moment and get out a pencil and paper and think. Because if you start with a pencil and paper and think just for yourself, you'll find some new thoughts that we'll be going over. Because while we do that, I'm going to do another arrangement. This one I'm doing with floral netting. It's got water in it, so I can't dump it over to show you, but trust me, it's floral netting in here with water, so it's foam free. Right now, that's an on-trend style of design. People are going, oh, I'm going to be foam free. Everything goes in circles. We were foam free forever because there was no foam. Then we had foam. Now we're going back to foam free. And it kind of makes me laugh because things just go in circles. But take your piece of paper, take a moment, and I want you to write down a number. At the end of the year, when you think about how much money you made in that year, what number do you want to see there? It's a hard number. Notice I didn't ask you to write it in and post it for the world to see. This is a personal question. I want you to write it down on a piece of paper for you. And just take a moment and think, the end of the year, what number do I want for my income? It could be $1,000. It could be $100,000. I don't care what that number is. None of us really care what your number is. You need to care what your number is. So write down a number. What do you want that to be at the end of the year? Okay. Now, take a moment. Think about one more number. I want you to think about what your time is worth per hour. So you've got that big number. Now I want you to write down, what are you going to make per hour? Okay. Yeah. Maybe it's $10 an hour. Maybe it's $25 an hour. Maybe it's $100 an hour. Again, it doesn't matter. But put that number down. Okay. Now get your calculator out. One more step. You've got a big number and you've got a little number. Divide them. Figure out how many hours do you have to work to get to your big number. So if you have, $50,000 there, and you want to make $25 an hour, how many hours do you have to work? Okay. Does that make sense to your world? Is that more hours than you can work? Is it more hours than you want to work? Because if it doesn't match up, it can't happen. You can't lie about this. This is kind of real hard math. It's reality. You have a number that you need to make to pay your bills and to be happy and to feel like you've accomplished things. And then you have a certain number of hours you're able to work. You can't work 20 hours a day. It doesn't happen. It shouldn't happen. I do realize some people do. And we all have, at some point in our lives, had to work a 20-hour day. Maybe you work a 24-hour day. You know, and we've all had bad days where you worked way too much. But you don't want to plan a life working 20-hour days. So you want to think about how many hours can you work, and then adjust. And you get to adjust it two ways. You could change that big number and say, well, I'm willing to do it for $30,000 a year. If that doesn't pay your bills, you can't make that decision. But that's what you want to think about. Are you going to lower your big number, or are you going to raise your little number, your hourly rate? And I'll be honest with you, most people underestimate what their hourly rate should be. I can't tell you how many times I talk to people and they think their hourly rate is $10 or $20. But when you think about how much time you spend thinking and not working, and training and learning and sitting on a live video going, okay, I'm going to learn this. There's an hour you just invested. Are you getting paid for this hour? No, not unless you put it to work so that you get value of learning. So think about that. Okay? So my challenge to each and every one of you is to determine how to make those two numbers work. So if you need to make $50,000 a year and you want to charge $25 an hour, you have to make sure you can work that many hours. If you want to make $100,000 a year and you only want to work for $25 an hour, how many hours? Ouch! It doesn't work, does it? It doesn't happen. So that means you've got to raise your hourly, which comes back to the two questions that I said, let's hold those. How do you put the value on yourself? How do you let the customer know that they need to pay for the time that you're spent thinking, and that they need to pay what your worth is? You know, that's the biggest challenge, because the customer doesn't care. The customer isn't worried about that. The customer is worried about paying the least amount of money they possibly can so that they save money, so that they make more money and they can go out to dinner, and they don't really care if you can't go out to dinner. That's not their job. They're the customer. So it's you that has to pay attention to that. And the best bit of advice that I can give you there is to learn to say no. It's a hard one, but if you learn to say no, say no. I can't do it for that. And then when you are pricing things, you say, well, this is going to be $150. I say, oh no, I want to pay $50. No, I can't do that. This is $150. Well, I'll get it someplace else. Go ahead. Somebody else may be able to sell it for less, but I know to give you the quality that you want, the reliability and the service you need and deserve, it costs $150. And you have to believe that. And you can't believe it until you know what you really need to charge to survive and meet your needs. So practicing saying no, N-O. Put that word in your vocabulary. Write it down. Make it be a mantra. No, no, no. You can say it. Say it with me. No, no. No is not a bad word. No is a really good word, because people that don't say no often enough end up going out of business because they burn out. They work too hard for nothing because they say yes to too many people, and then all of a sudden, all they're doing is working, eat, sleep, work, eat, sleep, work. And sleeping goes by the wayside because all of a sudden it's just eat, work, eat, work, eat, work. And your health gets compromised, your life gets compromised, your relationships, your friendships, all of that goes away. So learning to say no because you have value. Educating them as to the behind the scenes time They don't want to know that. They don't really care what it takes you behind the scenes, and they would never believe how much behind the scenes time there is. So don't even go there. Don't even worry about that. Instead, focus on the quality that you can give them, the service you can give them, the reliability, the creativity. Keep it focused on what they do see, that, oh, they always deliver on time. Oh, their flowers always last the longest. Oh, they always are ready for me, and they know that I love blah, 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 blah. I had one customer years ago when I was in retail that he actually drove all the way across town. He was about 15 miles away from me, but he would come all the way across town to buy from me, not because I was the cheapest. Believe it or not, the only reason he came to me is because I would always give him an extra stem of plumosa. He loved plumosa. And he had gone to a florist by his house and asked for more plumosa, and they told him, no, you get one plumosa. You can say no. I said yes, and I charged him for it. He wasn't asking for it for free. He just wanted more plumosa. So I said yes, billed him for it, and he came to me forever after that. Egbert was one of my favorite customers in the whole wide world. He was from Austria, and he didn't mind driving clear across to the other side of the city to buy his flowers because I would sell him more plumosa, which is pretty fun. Carolyn, what you got?
Marmac had a great tip, and also to say no to free flowers unless it's your mother-in-law.
Which comes back to my other rule, everything is full price or it's totally free, because all of a sudden you're going to have so many friends who want a discount. And guess what? If they're asking you for a discount, they're not your friend. If they really were your friend, they'd want to support you and support your business. Friends would want you to succeed, and they would see your value. So it's full price. Unless it's your mother-in-law, and then it's free. And I do that with everybody. No matter what it is, it's full price or it's free, which means if I'm doing flowers for you for free, it's going to be my immediate family, because I can't afford to do flowers for free for the world. So it's full price or free, and that's a great tip from Marmac that mother-in-law should get them free, because that makes everything better. Other questions, thoughts out there?
I have an awesome comment from Andrea, and may I also say you're getting such a positive response for this whole pricing situation. Someone even used the word empowering. Sorry, I can't even say that word. But Andrea wanted to say thank you for validating her right to say no. She did it last week and it felt good.
You know, Andrea, good job. This is going to sound sexist, but many times as women, we're taught that we shouldn't say no because we're supposed to try to keep everybody happy. And we're supposed to try to keep the world happy. But you know what? That's not your job. Your job is to keep you happy, because if you're happy, then you can make the rest of the world happy. If you're not happy, nobody's happy. I grew up with mom that always said that. If mom's happy, everybody's happy. But you know what? It really goes to, if you're happy, everybody can be happy. Because if you resent a customer because you gave them too low of a price and so you're having to work for too little money, you're not going to do as good a job. You're not going to be happy. They're not going to be happy. Nobody wins. Whereas if you do charge what you're worth and charge well, then you can. And it is empowering to know what you need to charge. It's scary. And I will give you another tip that helped me when I was starting. I made a price list. And I know that sounds really hard, because it is, because flower prices change. Flower prices do not stay static. And so there's variation. And so making a price list is a challenge. But you know what? As much as they change, there's an average, there's a generality. You can work within that. It doesn't change like night and day, except for Valentine's Day. Yeah, it changes there. Okay. But for the most part, it's going to be within a realm. So if you make yourself a price list, and you don't even have to show anybody, it can be just yours, that says, to do a small compote arrangement, I must have $85. To do a large compote arrangement, I must have $175. Then keep that with you. Keep that price list by your side. And when somebody calls and says, well, how much would it cost for this? You look at your list and you say, a small compote will start at $85. And it's also, if you would like it fancier, $115 or $145. Give them 3. But put your bottom line in writing, that you know you won't do it for less than 85. And if they say, oh no, I don't want to spend that much, and saying it's, well, we could make you a very small vase arrangement for $75. But if you want a compote, it's $85. Think about going to the grocery store and you're standing at the meat counter, which I guess if you're a vegetarian, you're not standing at the meat counter, but pretend you're not a vegetarian for a minute. You're standing at the meat counter, okay, and you're looking at that steak, and you want that steak. Oh my gosh, that steak looks good. But you can afford the hamburger, okay? Can you look at the butcher and say, I would like the steak for the price of the hamburger? They would just laugh at you. They might call security. They would think you were crazy. Why would it be different at a flower shop? So put together a price list so that you can have the confidence of knowing that this is what a compote costs, this is what it costs to do a wristlet. And you don't have to be exact on things, because I know you're not going to take the time to do that. Someday you might, but right now, just start it. Make a list. Okay, wristlet, bridal bouquet, compote, casket spray, arrangement to the hospital, centerpiece, and then put an absolute minimum on each one of those. And I don't care what your minimum is, make sure it works for you, but put a minimum on each of those. And then, every time somebody asks you for it, pull your list out. Say, that starts at, if you would like more exotic blossoms, and give them 2 more prices. So you have 3 total, your bottom line, little higher, little higher. So you're going good, better, best. And you know what? You'll be surprised how many times the people will buy the middle one, because they don't want to be cheap, but they don't necessarily need to be the most expensive. So if you give them good, better, best, they'll take better. So you just upped your bottom line. Score! That's the way you got to go for it. What else you got going on out there?
Yeah, Hussein on YouTube has a great question. He had a bride come to him with an estimate from another event florist that she didn't like the price on. So he's confused what to do. He understands why the price is so high, but probably wants to give her, his best pricing, but he doesn't want to cut himself short either.
That is such a challenge when you get a bride that comes to you with a quote from someone else, and it makes me crazy because I know that someone else went to all that work to quote it. And yes, you still want that bride, but you're going to quote it and they're going to take your price and go to somebody else yet. So it's a tough call. I refuse to work with them. Number one, I just think, I'll just say, you know what, that's the creative work of that florist. If this is the pricing, that's probably the pricing. I might be able to save you a penny, but it's really not worth it. And I think that you need to stick with your florist. They've got this all together for you. They've been the creative genius. Now, when I did make my living doing weddings, I wasn't the cheapest, but I wasn't the most expensive either. And I will tell you, there one time that I just lost my cool. I had a bride come in after I had given them my quote, and they had actually given a deposit down, so I had given them the whole quote, because once they give me a deposit, I give them everything in writing with all the detail and all my creative genius, but I wait till they paid me, and she had paid me. But then a couple days later, she came back. She had my quote, and she told me in no uncertain terms that I was ripping her off because she had gone to another florist, and that florist had taken my quote and just said, well, we could do it for this, this, and this, and didn't do the work. I did the work. And then they just said, yeah, we can make it cheaper. And they said, yeah, we can do that. Thing was, It was significantly cheaper. I mean, it was out of line cheaper. Like, it can't be done. So I just got so angry with the lady, I just said, fine, I don't want to do your wedding. I'm giving you your deposit back. Because you know what? On your wedding day, that florist is going to be out of business because there is no way they can do that. And she just looked at me and she goes, really? I said, yeah, they're going to be gone. Here's your money. I don't want your wedding. You know what? I kept the wedding. She said, oh, you might be right. Oh my gosh. Now, normally I don't tell people to do something that mean and awful, and that's not like me to do that. But you know what? When it's that wrong, you know it's wrong. And that florist isn't going to be in business for very long. Do you want a bride to suffer through a florist that's out of business after they were planning on it? So sometimes you got to call them on that and be brave. But that's hard to do, and I probably wouldn't suggest you do that on a regular basis. But that day, that person just pushed my buttons one time too many, and when they were telling me I was ripping them off, and I knew I'd given them a good value, it just upset me so much. And I'm sure you've all been there. But sometimes it's just like, no, you're wrong. No, 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 no. That no word. Pretend you're 2 years old all over again. Yeah. Other questions, thoughts?
Well, wait a minute, there's a finish to that story, as I recall.
That the florist was out of business. Yes. Yeah. Didn't I say that? Oh, maybe I never finished. But yes, the florist was out of business. And I knew they would be. Because I don't remember what the pricing was now, but they said they could do it for like less than half of what I was doing. And I'm like, I am not ripping you off. Yeah, somebody could maybe do it for 10% less or 20% less, but half? No way. That's just not going to happen. So yeah, you got to be a little cautious there. And another little subtle thing when it comes to pricing. How many of you have studied the body language books and such? You know, the art of body language, the skills of creative selling, using your body and such. If you haven't, go buy them or go to the library and check it out or go online and Google it. I bet you can get it on Amazon for free in their Kindle library. Who knows? You know, it's their old books, but the body language books, as long as when you're selling, as you are confident in your pricing and that you are accurate and you're fair and you can look them in the eye, then they trust you and believe you. It's when you're going, well, I think that might be $75 and you're hiding and well, maybe it's $65 and well, I'm not sure. Well, I'm thinking, and I knocked my earring off. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I knocked my earring off. Oh my gosh. So now you've lost all credibility, total credibility. Why would they pay you $85 for something that you can't even look them in the eye and say it's $85? If you're down here, it's $85, they're not going to pay you. So learn to have confidence and look them in the eye and then very subtly nod your head. That is $85. It's like you're being a hypnotist. But if you subtly nod your head, they are like, oh yeah, it's $85. You're right. Silly, but it works. So having the confidence to believe in yourself, knowing your pricing, have that sheet set up ahead of time, be ready, and then look them in the eye and say, it's $85. And they're like, okay. Or maybe you have to say, it's $30,000 because it's the hugest wedding ever. Yes, that's $30,000. You can do it. Yes, you can. So, any other questions out there?
I have a couple comments. Diane Hewlett, they use, how fabulous is this? They use like them, love them, or adore them.
That's great. Like them, love them, or adore them. That makes me think of a woman who used to work at the Flowers Tommy Luke when it was downtown Portland way back, probably 30 years ago. And she was so old, and she worked 1 hour a day at lunchtime, and she would come and sit at the cash register for that 1 hour a day. And if someone came in and she didn't think that they were spending enough, she'd just look them in the eye and goes, oh, you weren't very close, were you? I was like, oh my gosh. So always her prices went up because they were, oh no, we were close, but I thought that was good. Oh, you weren't very close, were you? That's a good one, though. Adore them. And so they want to adore them. That's what you want to do. So now, as I was working here, I just put in roses, carnations, liatris, and then a little tiny bit of Dusty Miller so that it brought in the texture. And I find that if you use something interesting like Dusty Miller, all of a sudden, even if it's just roses and carnations, there's a value to it. They think it's cool because it's got Dusty Miller. So looking for odd little foliages that you can tuck into your designs, be it plumosa, be it Dusty Miller, you can charge a little more there. So other thoughts, questions? If you haven't shared this yet, please do. Share it. Let's spread the word of profitable pricing with our peers, making sure that we all up our game. We all charge appropriately so that we can make a good living and give good value to the customer. So what else is going on?
So Lori, I think this is great. She says to watch yourself in the mirror selling so you can see what the other clients see.
Lori, that is so true, to the point of even if you're on the telephone, if you'll put a mirror in front of your telephone and watch yourself in the mirror and put a smile on your face, you will sell stronger and better. I promise. It just works. And I know that sounds silly, but if you can see yourself, you'll do a better job. I promise you on that one. So Lori, good idea. Excellent. Now, did I get Teresa's question answered well enough, the value, do you think? Did I get that done there?
I think so.
Okay. Teresa, are you happy with that? I think I tried to get all of that in there. And I think it was Robert that had the other question. Let's kind of bring it full circle back around. If you grow your product, if you forage your product, or if you get a great price on something, maybe you get a special deal, how do you price it? You price it as though you paid for full. That's just a little extra profit for you. So if hydrangeas are normally $2.50 and you got a box for $1 each, still price it out at $2.50 and mark it up from there. Because there's going to be a day that you have to pay $3.50 and you can't raise the price because you already quoted it. So it all balances out in the wash. So if you forage, if you grow, if you get it on sale, you still mark it up at the normal price. If you have to buy whole bunches and you're selling just a few, so like in this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 roses in this design, but I had to buy 25, then you have to figure out where you're going to sell the other 19. If you're in a store, that's a bonus because you can use it for your orders and with customers that walk in. If you're at home, you have to make a decision. Can you even afford to do that? Because you might not be able to. You might be in a pickle. So the word no comes to mind because you can't afford to do that. One of my favorite graduates of all time had a great program where she did mostly corporate clients and events, but she'd have people calling saying, I want a birthday arrangement or I want a centerpiece for dinner. She set a $500 minimum. So yes, I'll come to a centerpiece for your dinner. It's $500. Oh, you don't want to spend $500? I get that. I'm not your florist. What is your minimum so that you can afford to do that? Things to think about. Other thoughts? Marisa, anything going on out there? David, we've got just 2 minutes. If you have a question, get it in there. If you haven't shared, do so. Make sure we spread the word.
Bernadette wanted to know if there's any particular pricing calculators out there.
There are so many different ways of going at it. And if you look at especially wedding and event software, there are some calculator systems there. My favorite is just to use standard Excel. I get out an Excel spreadsheet and I just put in, okay, this is what I spent, times 3.5 or times 5 or times 10, whatever your number, let it calculate it. And that's what I use. But there are several different softwares in there. I know in the wedding classes, we talk about the different softwares that are available, and it's just getting to be more and more and more. So quite a few that you can look at and explore to see if any of them meet your needs. They usually come with a monthly fee, and so you have to determine, is that fee worth it for you, or do you want to just get out an Excel sheet and just try it that way, or use your phone calculator. I mean, at any point you just start calculating and it works. So other thoughts? Got it? Okay, so my challenge to each of you, if you haven't done it yet, is write down that number that you want to make at the end of the year. What is that number? And then write down what your hourly wage is. See if they match. If they don't match, decide which one you're going to change. Because you can change either of them. You can either make less for the year, or you can charge more per hour, but figure out which it's going to be. Then start out a price list. Just a basic one. My absolute minimum for an arrangement for a new baby is bum, 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 bum. My absolute minimum for a boutonniere is bum, 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 bum. Put that together. And then believe in yourself. And if it doesn't work, if it can't be done at your price point, say no, because you're worth it. You deserve it. There's no reason that you should be working for someone else for no money. That's not your job. Your job is to make beautiful things, to provide a quality service, a reliable product, great beauty and creativity, and then to be paid well for that. Thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate you spending an hour with me. And if you've got more pricing questions, don't hesitate. Pop me off an email, give us a phone call, type it into the questions. We'll be monitoring this for several days to make sure we get your questions all answered. If you didn't answer it well enough, let me know. I'm happy to try to do it again and kind of chat with you about it. And again, take the time to share this and get to know everybody in the tribe. And then come join us for Flower School, where we teach pricing each and every day, because it's the most important thing that I can do as a gift to you as you go out as a professional, is to make sure that you can make a living. Again, thanks for joining me. See you next week, Wednesday, 3 o'clock, for more fun on Flower School Live. Now get out there and do something you love.